Welcome back. This is lesson 3.3. In this lesson, I will cover the years in which comic book superheroes moved to television. And when I say comic book superheroes, in this case, I mean Superman. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a good understanding of the significance of television to superheroes in the 1950s, the significance of Superman to the development of superhero entertainments beyond comic books. Television had an impact on comic books in general. It is important to think a little about what was going on in America when television was introduced. It is also important to think about television as a visual medium. Television as a broadcast medium was technically possible in the 1930s, but it did not develop as a commercial possibility until after World War II. The reasons are various, but included the investment radio networks had already made in radio technology, and the Great Depression, and the lack of available investment finance. Remember that superhero comic books developed in this period. After World War II, conditions were generally better for the development of TV as a broadcast medium, both financially and technically. These were related. The advances in technology made it cheaper to develop TV. Television networks developed out of the major radio networks, NBC, CBS, and ABC, between 1948 and 1952. Another important factor was the baby boom. Following World War II, from 1946 to 1964, there was a rise in marriages and a rise in the birth of babies. Among other things, this baby boom created a youthful audience for television and comic books. Another important development post-World War II in the United States of America was the increase in suburbanization. Suburbanization meant people moving out from urban centers to suburbs. The availability of cheap bank loans to buy houses and cars and the creation of a highway system created a suburban boom in the USA post-World War II. It is a vast generalization to say these changes transformed media in America and led to the rise of broadcast television. But for our purposes in this course, we will go with that generalization. In the USA, in cities in the 1940s, comic books were available on newsstands. If you lived in a suburb, comic books could be found in what we call mom and pop stores, or drugstores, pharmacies that is. In the city, many newsstands existed. In the suburbs, you might have access to one or two mom and pop stores. Television, on the other hand, came into your house. Here's a key point. Television was part of a large social change in the USA post-World War II. This helped reshape media in general. And another key point. If your family owned a television set, this form of entertainment was free and more accessible for many than a regular supply of comic books. The television series The Adventures of Superman debuted September 19, 1952. The series built on the radio serial and had the same producer. The series also used the opening made popular in the radio serial. If you have never seen the show, I'll provide you a link to Stamp Day for Superman, an episode that is no longer controlled by copyright law. As the entry on archives.org says, the Superman production company donated this special 18-minute episode to the US Treasury to help promote school Stamp Day saving plans to children. This is the only episode of the series that has entered the public domain. It features all of the hallmarks that made the original 1950 Superman series so memorable. The 6 seasons of the series caught successive waves of baby boomers and is deeply ingrained in the cultural fabric. Even though the series has been released in DVD box sets and every streaming format, in 2015 it attracted a loyal following on the nostalgia cable channel MeTV in the USA. The series became a touchstone for readers and audiences of many other versions of Superman. The television series, by using the same opening that the radio serial used in September 1942, cemented the notion that Superman fought for truth, justice, and the American way. The series was produced on a shoestring budget, that is, very cheaply, but it resonated deeply with its audience, particularly from the second season on. Why? The first season of The Adventures of Superman followed the sort of story style of the radio serial. These stories were not so much superhero stories as we know them, but more sort of cops and robbers sort of stories. Moving these sort of stories to television made them a little grimmer in tone. That is, more suitable for an older audience. Perhaps it is one thing to suggest some violent crime on radio, but a different thing to show it on television. In any case, from season 2 on, The Adventures of Superman had stories that were more aimed at a younger audience and had less violent situations. What seemed to connect the audience to the series so much was that at the end of many episodes, Superman, Clark Kent, would turn to face the camera directly and wink at the audience. I think this helped create a bond between the audience and the character. The wink from Superman said to those watching that they shared the knowledge that Clark Kent was Superman. The adults in the show, like Lois Lane, Perry White, and Jimmy Olsen, never did work out that fact, and so it probably gave children the feeling they shared a secret with Superman. I'd like to say I know this, but it is a theory, and one not so easily proved, because the children of that time are all adults now, and their memories may not be reliable. The Adventures of Superman had a significant global distribution. It was also shown many times over in many different markets. Its impact on the audience for superhero entertainments can be judged by the fact that people wrote letters to Superman comic books talking about the features of the television show. This is the last key point of this lecture. When people think of Superman, often the first thing that comes to mind is truth, justice, and the American way. This phrase is not from the comic book, but from the radio serial and the television series. So even though we might think of superheroes only breaking out of comic books in relatively recent years, they did so far earlier than most people imagine. This is the end of the lecture. This lesson has 3 key points. Go back over your notes and the video of the lesson to make sure you have noted these points. Next up, Module 4, Superhero Resurgence, 1956 to 1986.